Hi everyone, welcome to the Heart of Webinars show. I'm Irini and I am the Kefi Chick and a webinar specialist. And it is my great pleasure today to welcome Caroline Power. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you for having me here. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.
So I'm just going to share a little bit about Caroline. Caroline is a nutritional hypnotherapist. She is super qualified not only as a dietitian and food technologist for over 13 plus years, she also has a mindset now of assisting women and emotional eating once and for all. As a previous emotional eater, I can surely vouch for Caroline because I've had some personal experience working with her. So there will be no willpower required when you're working with Caroline, let me tell you. So she's been consistently presenting webinars on a monthly basis for a while now. And we're going to just chat about how to nourish your body when you're going to present webinars and that sort of stuff, and anything else juicy that comes up during our chat. Welcome, Caroline. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey with webinars?
Sure. So I started presenting webinars when I was part of a network marketing company, and it was just something that was told that we had to do, right? So what we do is we present webinars, we get people to come, we educate them, and then at the end they could buy or not buy or whatnot. So that was when I started. So when I started this business, which was about 18 months ago, I, for some reason, really resisted going into webinars. Mindset stuff, yes, definitely, of course. I did one webinar, which was right after I started, and I maybe had something like 13 people sign up to it. I thought I had to go big. I thought I had to get one of those Go webinars and Go webinars and all of those things and click funnels and I needed all of that, right? Because that's what you think you need. That really didn't work. And I had my VA and my web designer show up live and not many other people. Actually, the webinar was pretty good, but because I was talking about things that I was doing. However, I really didn't structure it the right way. So that kind of turned me off a little bit, a little bit of mindset there, because I was just like, oh, what do I do with this webinar and whatnot? And then I got a business coach who said, you really should get back into it. I worked on my mindset. And since September, I've been presenting webinars consistently. So September, October, November, December, January, and I have one booked for February as well. I haven't started promoting yet. But going back to what you need to do to nourish yourself. So before I even talk about nourishing yourself, I need to talk about my 3 pillars for health. And my three pillars for health are nutrition, mindset, and support. So what do you do with your nutrition? I have heard people tell me, even today, saying that before a webinar, all they did was they had coffee. So they sat in front of the computer, they did the webinar. After the webinar, crash.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to help. And even though coffee might give you that boost, it's the come down is not the greatest. So what I would say is that if your webinar is in the morning, your nourishment starts in the evening. Okay. So, and the nourishment.
We'll just take that a break there and think, okay, so what you're telling me, if I've got this right, or telling all of us really, sharing with all of us, is that we really need to consider what we're going to eat the night before, the day before our webinar, so that we are nourishing our body from the beginning of, it's more of a 24-hour process. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
It's not a marathon. So you don't think that actually preparing for probably not a marathon is probably not the best, because a webinar is not a marathon. But if you think about a race or a run, or you go to the gym even, right, you're going to take it out of your body, because your brain actually takes about 25% of all glucose in your body, right? So even though you're using your brain throughout the entire webinar, because you're going to be talking about your subject matter, so because you're the expert, you are going to be answering questions, which is going to take that brain power off you. You really need to start. It's kind of like, instead of the physical, you're having the brain working instead of going to the gym. So with the nourishment, I say, yep, 24 hours before, the day before, you really have to, well, truthfully, every day you should be eating mindfully, 80% healthy, 20% not so healthy, because I do believe in moderation. I don't believe in restriction, right? And anyway, that's a rant for another time, because we're here to talk about webinars. And what you do is, even if you have been super naughty, just before, the day before, make sure that you're having the right amount of food as well, and the right amount of sleep, okay? Because nourishment doesn't stop at food. It actually is self-nourishment as well. So it's your whole nourishment with, it's okay. So maybe before my webinar, I can go for a walk and just let my mind go. Before a webinar, what I would not recommend you to do is sit down and go through your notes the entire time, because you know what? You're not going to learn something, or you're not going to completely have an epiphany 3 minutes before a test or 3 minutes before a webinar, right? So just get your mind away from everything before the webinar. And again, nourishing yourself, your body, the day before, the night before, having a good night's sleep, right? And if you have trouble falling asleep, you can have some mindfulness meditations in the background and things like that to really nourish your mind, your brain, so that it's primed and ready for the next day. And in the morning, obviously, you can have your tea in the morning, you can have your breakfast. I do recommend people to have, the three main groups, right? I don't think we should be talking that much about nutrition, because people actually know what they should be eating, right? The complex carbohydrates, which is kind of like the fiber, the slow releasing, that's going to give you that energy throughout the webinar, right? And a little bit of protein to keep you fuller for longer, and fat, which healthy fats that would also keep you fuller for longer. So if you do that in the morning, if you do that 24 hours before, have a good night's sleep, you are going to be super nourished and prepared for that show, for that webinar.
Cool. So if I said to you, well, give me an example of what I could be eating the night before, are we talking a pasta dish, or, like, I know when they're talking marathons, they talk about carving up. Is that the sort of thing we're talking about, or are we talking about a protein in a salad sort of scenario?
I always say have half of your plate, and I don't have a thing here I can do, but half of your plate should be of, let me just do a little drawing, should be of veggies, and I mean by that, I mean leafy veggies. And a quarter of your plate of protein, and a quarter of your plate of complex carbohydrate, which could be, so if you see this, right? So you have half of your plate would be of veggies, so leafy vegetables, a quarter of your plate of protein, so a good lean protein, such as, if you're a vegan, you can have some chickpeas and lentils and cereals and things like that can also work. But, meat eaters can just have fish, beef, chicken, and that would be your protein. And your complex carbohydrates could be something like your sweet potato or your brown rice, or quinoa is actually a mix between a protein and a complex carbohydrate as well. So, or you can just mishmash and make a full salad. But what I mean by that is, don't just go all out and eat just protein, or don't just go all out and eat just fats. Make sure that it's balanced, because you're nourishing your brain with that stuff, especially before.
What about during the webinar? Like we talked about hydration. A lot of people are using the platform Zoom, and so you're visible. So, for example, I've got a drink of water to the side here, but I'm not using that right now. So what do you recommend people do so that they don't interrupt their flow of presenting to have a drink of water? or should you just do that if you need a drink of water? What would you recommend for people?
I do that, and I think you should do that. I think that
okay, I've got permission.
Yes, we are all human. We all need to drink water, and I feel that water is a part of life. It also helps the whole body works. We are all composed of, between 50 and 60% of water, depending on our stage in life. So definitely, I would stop. I do stop, actually. I have my whole water bottle, my water thing here. It's 1 liter of water. I drink 2 to 3 of these a day, and I just go and sip. And even as you were talking before, I was sipping my water. So I think people know that we are human, and this whole thing, and you have to as well, and whoever's watching this needs to think that, who told you that you had to be perfect in the webinar, right? Yeah. So we're all human, and as humans, we are constantly learning. It's all a practice, right? So
absolutely, that is really, really interesting, because a lot of people think that running a webinar is just about the nuts and bolts, the technical stuff, the slides, but there is actually more to it than that. And in reality, this spreads out to when you're working with clients, or if you're standing in front of people. It really is a no-brainer when you understand it all. But so many people get stuck on the hop and end up making choices that perhaps aren't going to give them the best result they're looking for. So thank you so much for all of that information. I'm curious, do you have a routine before you start your webinar? What do you do? How do you set yourself up for a successful webinar?
So if I'm using slides, I print out the slides, right? So I usually have the slides in like a 4 in a page, 4 to a page. And I just make slight notes on the slides. And then I always have them here with me so I know what's coming next. I do know that the Mac and other PCs, they will have that other function. But because I'm using Zoom, I just would rather play it safe. So I can print it out. I just make my own notes, and I know what's coming next. I know what slide is coming next. If I'm not using slides, then I still have a note of a bullet point, something like this. Like I presented something, so I have a bullet point of some things that I need to mention. 1, 2, 3. Yep, covered it all. Great. Thank you for having me. That kind of stuff. I also prepare myself by drinking water, making sure that I am having my breakfast, my smoothie. I usually have smoothies in the morning, right? Because that's how I have breakfast. I actually intermittent fast, so I don't have my smoothie until about 11 o'clock. Usually I do go for an exercise or a walk or something like that, just to clear my mind a little bit. And sometimes during my walk, because I'm not thinking of the webinar, I actually think of something really interesting to talk about in the webinar, which is really cool. And one thing that I would say as well, like I said, 1 is nutrition, 2 mindset, 3 is support. I make sure, so mindset we're covered, because, we're working on the mindset as we go. Nutrition we're covered. And I make sure before my webinar that someone to support me is coming. Someone from my cheerleading squad is coming to support me, right? Whether it's your VA, whether it's your best friend, whether it's your accountability buddy or your business buddy, make sure that there is that person there. Because at times when you're presenting, if you are nervous, you can just literally just look at that person on the screen and present it to them. You don't have to pretend that everybody else is not in the room and present to that person, because that'll probably give you an anchor as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Now, I know that you've got an amazing new program that you've just started. I call it the Triple E because that's the way I remember it, but I know that it goes a bit deeper than that. So would you like to just share a little bit about that? I'm just going to share the link on the screen right now for a moment, and then I'm going to copy it into the comments as well.
Right. So the Triple E program is called End Emotional Eating, but I was talking to the ladies today that really should be called Start Your Life and not End Emotional Eating, because we go a lot deeper. My passion is to help women release any of that habit, any of those patterns regarding emotional eating. And we do that with the power of hypnosis, which means no willpower is required. Well, you might just need some willpower to come to the calls, or participate in the group. But even so, you're going to find that we are such a closed, beautiful community of 20 women right now. And this is the pilot round as well. So you can ask me as many questions. It'll never be this small again. That's all I say as well. And we had a coaching call today. Everybody got a turn to talk. And I really help you to dig deep and release whatever it is that's stopping you from becoming the healthiest version of you. Right? So whether it is with weight, some women are there because they want some weight loss, but I don't guarantee weight loss. I guarantee that you can release emotional eating, because we are all emotional eaters at some point or another. We are all emotional, even if we just eat because we're happy. It's what happens afterwards. After you eat, what happens with you? Are you making yourself guilty, shameful, or whatever? Or are you happy, or what's going on? And I help you deal with that through that program. We only started this week, so there's still time to jump on, and just go to bit.ly/EE program. And
okay.
yes, just below there.
Fantastic. I can vouch for the emotional eating component. I have been working with Caroline for a little while now, and I can vouch that my go-to after having a stressful day or stressful moment would be go to the bag of lollies or the chips or something that is not going to nourish me in the way that I would like it to, but would give me that energy rush. Well, I actually have to admit that since I've been working with Caroline, that hasn't happened. So it's really interesting. Sometimes those sneaky little behaviours take a while to show the difference on your hips. But I do know that she does do a really good process that I would thoroughly recommend. Thank you so much for joining me today, Caroline. Our next show will be next Monday night at 7 p.m. and my guest is Wendy Tullis, who I've also been working with on my ancestry stuff. And she has agreed to allow me to coach her on Monday evening. So you can see how I work with people to assist you unpack how to create your webinar and the things that you need to consider. Once again, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a delight. We have lots of great hot tips, and we will see you when we see you, hopefully next Monday.
I will be here. Bye.